Welcome to Lost After Death, a series in which I dig deep into archiving some of the UK's best unsung, underrated and unknown parts of a bygone era. You know, the UK had some of the most diverse and busiest alternative music scenes per square mile, each county of the country having multiple different scenes and communities, from punk, metal, hardcore and even indie. This series will try and platform some of the great and unfortunately forgotten scenes, venues, festivals, bands, record labels, you name it. And so for today's first episode, we're starting with a band that were at the forefront of UK metalcore within the early 2000s, and that is the band Beecher. Beecher were a British metal and hardcore band from Manchester, formed in 2001 and played a mix of metalcore, noise rock and progressive metal. The band released 2 demos, 1 EP, 1 split and 2 full-length albums during their career. In this episode, we chat to Beecher's vocalist Ed Godby on the life of the band, as well as his career outside of the band after their split. Okay, so I'm here with Ed Godby, who was the vocalist of Beecher, Freezing Fog, Castles and SuperGenius. So I just wanted to kind of start having a chat about Beecher and their kind of a career in retrospective in a nutshell. And I kind of wanted to start first of all with as far as when you guys started in the early 2000s, how did you meet up with the rest of the guys? And can you also kind of tell me a bit of a perspective of kind of what was going on in Manchester when you guys were starting out, as far as bands and the scene goes?
Yeah, sure. So I met them in 2001. I think it was maybe the spring of 2001, and it was through Mark's sister. In fact, one of my best friends was going out with Mark's sister. And Mark's the guitar player from Beecher, the sort of main contributing songwriter, really, I suppose you could say. So my best mate really was going out with his sister, and they started playing together. Actually, Mark and Dave and Will, so that's the bass player, the guitar player, and the drummer, the original drummer, anyway, from Beecher, they were in a grime band called Dr. Meat Dick, and it was a really good band actually. I'd seen them play a few times, seen them opening for Iron Monkey and doing a bunch of other stuff that was pretty good. And I knew that had finished, and then they were sort of jamming on this new idea, and they didn't have a singer. They had a friend of Mark's that was like a colleague of Mark's actually, that did sort of visuals with a camcorder live. He would improvise visuals during the shows, and he would do some sort of sparse vocals, but nothing really written, if you know what I mean. And they did a couple of shows. I actually saw them play with this guy. I think his name was Woody. Obviously that wasn't his actual name. He wasn't the character from Toy Story or whatever. But I think it was Woody. And so I saw them play in that configuration, and then through Alex, which is Mark's sister, I found out that they were looking for a singer, and she said that I should meet up with them to try it out. So that's how it happened. And they're actually a bit older than I am, so it was quite an intimidating thing actually, because they're Dave's born in 1974, so that makes him 52 now, which, oh my god, yeah. So at the time I think he was 27 or 28, and I was only 2001. I was only 18. So yeah, it was a bit of a sort of intimidating experience at first, but within one practice we'd kind of got over that, and it was good.
So were you going to shows actively at this point, in Manchester and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone kind of came from different scenes in that band. So I was definitely, from the age of about 15, I was into, as a younger kid, 13, 14, I was into metal and stuff. And then from about 15, I started to get into hardcore and quickly kind of got into the sort of darker side of hardcore, metalcore, and not so much like the sort of positive youth crew stuff, which was actually, a lot of that was happening in Manchester, and a lot of like old friends who are still friends now kind of involved with that scene, but quickly kind of got into the sort of more metallic, darker side of things. And so I was kind of the one that brought that to the table in Beecher. The other guys were all sort of more into grind and death metal and sort of experimental avant-garde type stuff and pop music and Britpop. Like all of them, like the three of them were really sort of into, they had really kind of diverse music taste compared to me as an 18-year-old. It's not the case now, but as an 18-year-old I was very, I like this, I like you know, like metallic hardcore, I like Converge, I like Length of Time, I like All Out War. And obviously these are things that change, aren't they, with time? But like meeting them was cool because they were into like a wide variety of stuff, which is kind of where the sound kind of came from, I suppose, really.
Yeah, I think knowing that in retrospect kind of says a lot about the music that you made, because all of the things that you just listed, I can absolutely hear from, even from the earliest material. I wanted to ask about, so there was 2 demos, I believe, that you guys recorded, like a demo 1 and a demo 1.5.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right, yeah.
Can you tell me more about that and like coming up with those demos?
That happened really quickly. They'd been there was actually I have to mention this, there was actually a 4th member of the band. It wasn't just Mark, Dave, Will. There was another guy called Danny Plan, who was in the band from the start, from the creation of the band. And they'd been playing together, like the 4 of them, with this other guy doing the visuals and stuff for a bit, and they'd written sort of 5 or 6, maybe 7 songs that I came into and like wrote the vocals for sort of retrospectively. So it all happened really fast. I kind of just met up with them for rehearsal, and then within really a few weeks, I can't really remember the timeline of it that well, it's quite a long time ago, but 25 years ago, but I really think within a few weeks we decided to record some stuff that was kind of already on the table. And I remember it was Mark was a baker at that time, and it was one of his colleagues that was doing like a sound engineering course at a local school somewhere in South Manchester. I'm not sure where that was. Might have been in like Didsbury or something. And so we went in there and we did those demos. I think we did them all at once and then just released them sort of separately. I think we took we did maybe 5 songs and released one demo with 3 songs and one demo with 2 songs. We didn't really release them, but we just sort of like burned them onto CDRs and handed them out to people at gigs or whatever.
Right. And how busy was the band at this point when these demos were happening? Were you gigging a lot, or was it very just like whenever things happened?
I can't remember. I think it was around the time that we started getting our first gigs as the sort of like original 5-piece, if you like. I think it was all kind of happening around the same time, and so we'd start playing gigs locally, and then I remember we started getting offered gigs a little bit further afield. We started going to Derby and Nottingham. Derby particularly, for some reason, was a good spot for us. There was a venue called the Victoria Inn in Derby, and a few of like our sort of first gigs out of town took place there. And it's kind of a bit of a blur, but I mean, I was a young kid and sort of jobbing around, not doing much. The other guys were a bit older and had like kind of proper jobs, which is something that ended up being a problem when the band started to get more and more traction and take up more time. Jobs were a source of friction.
Did that dynamic ever become, I guess you're alluding to it, but the dynamic of the age gap between you guys, was that ever part of friction or?
I mean, I suppose in hindsight, I was probably a bit childish and didn't really understand the needs of the other guys, and all of us took the music very seriously. Everybody in the band had the same goals and wanted the same things, but it was harder for some people in the band than others. Like it was of no consequence to me whatsoever. I would just be down for whatever. You know, I could just drop everything like at no notice, and I had no responsibilities. Whereas some of the other guys did have responsibilities, and you know, and that in the end, that's why we ended up losing Will Shaw, the drummer, who played on Resention, is a big word in the small town, and then on Breaking the Fourth Wall. After releasing Breaking the Fourth Wall, when the touring cycle started for that, and he started to realise, this is now getting to the point where it's serious, and I'm going to have to make a decision about my day. That's when he was out. You know, he was out because he had to make a decision about his day job, and I can understand that now as a 43-year-old. At the time, I found it very difficult to understand. I probably wasn't very nice about that at the time, so I should probably say sorry to Will. I have actually said sorry to him. So we did the demos, and then very quickly did the first record, which is called Resention, is a big word in the small town. Resention is actually not a word at all. And I didn't give the title to Breaking the Fourth Wall either. Both of those titles are attributed to Danny Plant, who was the fourth member, the second guitar player.
Right. Oh, okay.
He played on Resention, is a big word in a small town, and then he came with us to the States to record Breaking the Fourth Wall. But in the end, he didn't actually play on any of it because it wasn't. It was one of those things. It wasn't working out. So, but he gave the titles to both of those records. I mean, it's sometimes it don't matter, but sometimes it kind of annoys me that it's not called Resentment as a big word in a small town. I kind of wish it was, but it's not. So that's fine.
So okay, so a little bit skewed, but okay, let's talk about that first release then, the EP. So as far as going into that, that was through In at the Deep End Records.
Which came about because of the Derby connection. Like, we were going to play at the Vic Inn, and the guy from In at the Deep End, Mark Swinney, was a Derby-based guy, and so he saw us playing those gigs, a few of those gigs at the Victoria Inn, and straight away was like, I want to put out your record. So that's what.
Right. Okay. So was that a case where he showed that he was interested, and the next thing you recorded was through them, or was it a planned that your first debut record would be with them? Well,
I mean, we're kind of already we were already at the stage where we were ready to go. So he'd see us, and from what I can remember anyway, I think he'd seen us and was like, "Oh, I want to put out your record," and we were like, "Okay, so should we record it next week?" That was kind of how it went, and he was like, "Okay, fine, yeah." And it was that easy in them days, like.
Right.
He just and so we went there. We went to Kettering, Corby, and we recorded with a sound engineer called Ian Weatherall, who's based in Corby. And we did that. Why did we do that? I don't know why. I don't know what took us there. Like, some bands had recorded there, but not any bands that I particularly liked. I think I don't even know, but there were some bands that recorded there, and it seemed like a good idea. So that's where that came from.
So I was going to ask, as far as like your memories of the recording process for that record. So obviously this is your first, like, I guess, main record with the band. What was the dynamic like with recording, writing, producing the record in general?
It was very straightforward and basic. It was all written before we got there. I can't remember how many days we had there, but it was not long. It might have been done in a couple of days, really. Like the engineering and then the mix might have been done in a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, I would say. And there were no real surprises. Everything was written, probably apart from the vocals, really, which were to some extent a little bit improvised.
Right.
And I remember like I wasn't comfortable with having like a vocal mic, set up rig in front of me. So in the end, I recorded them on an SM58 in my hand, like cupping it, like as if it was a live performance. Right. So I mean, and really now, with hindsight, the sound of the record is horrendous, But at the time, I feel like it kind of captured what we were about, and it definitely. I think if you listen to some of the songs on that record, it definitely like shows like a kind of progression curve as to where we're going to end up.
So as far as your approach to the vocals and like being the vocalist in general, was it a case that the band would you all write together, or was it a case where the band would finish a song and go, can you put lyrics over this? How was that?
At that time it was like that, yeah. Like a lot of that material was already written. A lot of the songs off that, I think there are only 7 songs on it maybe. I think at least 5 of the 7 of them were the songs that made up the demos. That weren't any. I didn't have any kind of contribution at all to the writing process of those songs. So I just sort of put vocals over the top of them through cassette recordings or whatever, and at rehearsals. And it all happened really, really quickly. And then, of course, after we made that record, we started to get quite a lot of like offers for gigs and shows all over the place. So every weekend we were driving all over the shop, playing as many shows as we could, because we sort of said, well, that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to say yes to everything.
I was going to ask what was the feedback like from the general, like from publications, from like the core audience of you guys?
Really, really good. And at that time there was no real sort of internet to speak of. I mean, the internet existed, but there was sort of like forums and stuff, but there was no like social media. There was no, so it was really just sort of like press publications that picked up on it, and all of the sort of alternative music press publications got behind us. We had like Kerrang behind us. We had Terrorizer, Rock Sound, Metal Hammer, all these old magazines that probably, I don't even know if they exist anymore, but at the time it was a big deal, and that was kind of like, we're doing something good because these magazines are picking up on it and giving us little features and good reviews and coming to gigs, reviewing gigs, even our own gigs. So that was cool. I remember in 2002 we opened for Cave-In. I think it was like the sort of lead live review in Kerrang that week. So it was like a full double page spread with like at least a good paragraph on us, and I remember that being a big deal, like a good live review from Kerrang. And so the reaction was good, and because we were playing so often, we were together often, we were writing often, because every time we were sound checking and every time we were getting together to rehearse for gigs, we could be quickly sort of moving onto compositions and the new material, because it's sort of, I don't know. But what I was gonna explain about that is when you're writing music and you're in that creative zone, I feel like what's behind you is behind you, and you're always looking to the next song and the next thing and the next idea and like developing the next idea. So there was really like a sort of effervescence within the at the time the 5 of us. Every time we got together, new riffs were getting like worked on and developed, and new ideas, and I personally was really excited about the new stuff, because it was stuff that I was there for the inception of, and that's when I really feel like it started. I mean, that is when it started to come into its own, because we started to get better live, and we ended up writing all the songs that make up Breaking the Fourth Wall, which is definitely sort of like the probably the biggest moment in the small career of the band. Definitely, that's sort of like adrenaline and how can I explain it? That feeling of, all right, yeah, we've got this new idea, this new riff, and it's coming together with this passage and that passage. And like, for example, the second song on Breaking the Fourth Wall, I remember so well when that tapping lick came out of Mark, and then that sort of syncopated drum beat, which you wouldn't expect at all to come over the top of that riff. Like I remember that sort of coming out of the ether and just being created in a moment.
So there was clearly a momentum happening. There's like a lot of push behind the band. Like, obviously you guys are very inspired to start writing music. So I'm assuming this is when a lot of that kind of those international bands are coming over. You're doing. Were you touring specifically with bands around this time as well, or was it still the weekend thing?
This all started happening after Breaking the Fourth Wall. So we came back. We went to Boston in February of 2003, I think. I'm pretty sure February. And when we came back, March time, we came back with the record unmastered, and then the masters came through, and then it went to the record label, and then everybody was going crazy about how it sounded, and we were sort of playing it to people left and right, and people's reactions were very positive to what we'd made, and then we started. We were in touch with a booking agent at that point, who said, right, okay, well, I mean, it seems like the right time to be pushing this as far as we can, and that's when all of the tour support started rolling in after breaking the 4/4. The first big one I remember was with Killswitch Engage. It was Killswitch Engage and Poison the Well, and we were the opening band, and it was like how many days? Maybe 10 days, something like that. And just at that time, it was like a month or 6 weeks or 2 months after we got back from the States. The album wasn't out yet, but unfortunately, it was just at the time when we sort of cut ties with Danny, the second guitar player, the rhythm guitar player, if you like. And we didn't really know what we were going to do. And I'll never forget that we got this offer for this tour. And there was another band at that time who were touring, who were around from Leeds, a band called Derail. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
We're good friends of ours. And we'd kind of sort of asked Neil from Derail if he'd be up for standing in while we found a permanent guitar player. Yeah, sure, whatever. And then I remember getting the offer for the tour, and I remember sending an email. It wasn't an email; it was a text message, like to Neil with, "Would you be up for 10 dates with KSE and PTW?" And I remember his answer was just like, "Are you talking about Killswitch Engage and Poison the Well?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "Yeah, I'm up for it." And so I remember that was the first big tour that we got on. And from there, all sort of snowballed. We were just getting offered kind of tour supports, not all the time, but quite frequently.
Okay, so just to go back to breaking the fourth wall. So as you alluded to, you guys flew over to record with Kurt.
Yeah, exactly.
So after Resention, it should be. After that record, obviously, like, you're writing a lot, and then so this next record kind of gets finished fairly quickly and
super fast because if the timeline's correct, I think Resention came out maybe early 2002. I can't remember when it came out, but it must have been early 2002. And then we sort of toured through the spring and the summer, and then finished off the writing through the winter. And then in early February, I think it was around the 1st of February 2003, we flew out. So the record was written in a year.
So as far as your relationship with Kurt at this point, had you met Kurt before? Was it just like a kind of a cold email kind of situation, or?
Yeah. I'd met him a couple of times. I saw Converge's first European tour. They played in a beer garden in Wigan in 1998, I think, on like this all-day festival. Absolutely great, sort of very memorable moment for sort of 15, 16-year-old burgeoning hardcore fan to get to go and see Converge play in a beer garden in Wigan. So yeah, I hadn't really had any contact with him per se, but then when we wanted to make the record, we obviously knew of him and his work with Converge, and also his work as a record producer. And yeah, I think we just contacted. I think before he worked on that record with us, he'd worked on the Treachery Pact with Eden Main, who were a sort of band that were kind of sort of lumped in with us. For whatever reason, I don't think we sounded anything like Eden Main, or sounded, or from sound, or like philosophy and the culture around the music. I think completely different. Yeah, distorted guitars. Apart from that, no real similarities. But but he'd worked with them, and so we were like, yeah, we should contact him, see if he's up for it, and immediately he was. The difference is he'd flown to the UK to record the Eden Main record, and we flew to Godcity, and we actually recorded it in the old Godcity. So the studio, the current studio, which is in Salem, Massachusetts, didn't exist at that time. He just bought the building, and we actually went and visited the building while we were there breaking the fourth wall. But his studio wasn't set up there at all. It was set up in a different part of Boston. I can't remember where exactly. In a different part of Boston.
So I was going to actually ask you about the E Domain connection, because I knew that he had flown over. I didn't know whether or not he'd recorded you guys first or them. So that's good to clarify.
E Domain record first. I'm sure of that.
So he says yes. You decide to fly out there. How was it first? Well, one, recording with him, approaching him as a producer. Like, how helpful was he with the recording? Like, what was his sort of relationship with you and the record as far as recording went?
He's great. Like, since then, I'm still very much in touch with him, and made quite a lot of records with him since. And he's great as a producer, because he'll sort of just let things happen naturally, and if he feels like he needs to take control of something and give a bit of direction, he'll do it. But he's not. He's quite clear on the fact that it's not his record, it's someone else's record, and he's just kind of the vehicle to make it happen and to make it sound how that person wants, or to some extent how he wants as well. And because we didn't know him well, so we arrived there and sort of got to know him a bit the first couple of days, and then we recorded the bass and the drums at a studio out of Boston called the Outpost, which is quite a big analog studio, which was not his studio at all. It was just sort of a rented space, and that's where we did the bass and the drums. And then we moved the tapes across to Godcity 2, which was his old studio, and did the vocals and the guitars and all the overdubs and everything there. And yeah, he was always, even from then, he was just kind of relaxed, laid back, chilled out kind of guy. Just liked making records, I think, and always helpful. And yeah, I think he really made. We arrived there with the material written, but I think he kind of helped to form it in some way, and definitely the sound of the record. We didn't really know how it was going to sound when we arrived there, so he definitely sort of took control of that and gave the direction in terms of the sound.
So how long were you there for? 10 days, did you say?
I can't remember. Yeah, about 10 days. Wow. I suppose.
That's great.
I can't remember, to be honest, I can't remember exactly. I know the second time, because I'm getting ahead of myself, but we went back and made this Elegy, Autopsy, and we were there for a month then.
Okay.
But I think the first one it was 10 days. And honestly, and that's probably related to the energy of the record.
Yeah.
And to a number of factors that are sort of not linked to the amount of time that we took to make the record. But the first one is probably better, and it only took 10 days. And the second one, which took a month. But I mean, again, that's entirely subjective, isn't it? But
yeah. I was going to ask you as well. So with this record specifically, you're not with In at the Deep End. You do it through Calculating Risk. Was there an intentional reason for that, or was it just a case that you guys wanted to go with another label?
That didn't go down well.
Okay.
We made the decision to release the record through Calculated Risk, which was a label that was, I think, even created for that record. I don't think the label existed before. The guy who ran that label was a guy called Martin Ives.
Yes, who was in Lab Rat.
He was a singer in Lab Rat, and also he wrote for Metal Hammer.
Ah, okay.
I think he wrote for Metal Hammer, or he did something for Metal Hammer anyway. And he became a friend, and we definitely all sort of related to him a lot better than we related to the Mark Swinney, who was the boss, if you like, at In at the Deep End, who had kind of a different philosophy and a different outlook on things to us. And we definitely sort of saw more of ourselves in Martin than in Mark, and so that's why we wanted to. And it wasn't something that went down particularly well, but at the same time, we we hadn't signed a contract with anybody. We were free to do whatever we wanted. So
was it a case that you went into the recording knowing that you probably weren't going to go within at the deep end, or like how far along did you know that it was probably going to be or did they even know? What was like the communication like?
We knew. I don't know if they knew.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
I mean, I can't really remember. Again, the timelines are a bit blurry, but we knew. And again, I do remember that it did cause some friction. So it's possible that we knew it and he didn't know.
Fair enough.
But again, in the end, there was, we didn't really owe anything to anybody. So we just, and it's not like, I think that maybe was a reason that he found it annoying actually, is because it's not like we sort of, put it out on Geffen. It's not like, they've been offered a massive deal. So there was no difference. There's no financial difference in between, the two offers. We just felt more at home with Martin and felt happier with him dealing with it for us.
Fair enough. The other thing I was going to ask is this record, the album artwork, is done by Aaron Turner, obviously of now Neurosis fame.
He is in Neurosis now, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, Sumac and all the other incredible things that he's done.
Of course.
ISIS as well, yes, and Hydra Head as well, obviously.
Absolutely.
So, how did that happen? Was that another case of you just approached him, and did you have a relationship with him at all?
Not at all. And I've met him a few times since, and we just cards on the table. I think at that time we just wanted to be able to write a name in the inlay, and there's no context or reason for that record cover, which is awful. I mean, it's an awful record cover. Like, now I can look at it and say, well, yeah, we asked Aaron Turner to make our album cover. He didn't know us. He didn't particularly like it, probably. And he just said, okay, it's this much money. I don't know how much money we paid him to do it. I can't remember that. But, that's obviously how it went down. And then he said, here you go, this is a thing that I've made. I mean, I've got the utmost respect for Aaron Turner and for lots and lots of his creative output, whether it be musical or artistic. But I just think that he took a payday on that one and just gave us something that was on his hard drive. Right. To the point where the layout, if you look in, maybe that was actually fixed, but when we got it, like in the thanks list and in the credits, the spacing between the words wasn't even like how it should be.
Not good kerning there.
No. I mean, and again, like I said, utmost respect for Mr. Turner and everything that he's done. I mean, I'm a massive fan of ISIS, and I've always been a massive fan of Neurosis.
Yeah.
And he's new to that, but and again, a massive fan of Hydra Head. There's so many bands that have come out on Hydra Head that I would consider to be like pioneers of a genre of music that's kind of shaped my existence. But I really feel like he did his kind of dirty on the album cover. The LP version is way better. There's a unique version for the vinyl. There's a vinyl version of the artwork, which is infinitely better than the CD version.
So that was my next question, was as far as like his artwork that he provided for you guys. So it wasn't a case that you gave him a brief or anything. He kind of provided you some artwork that was just something that he had potentially. But
exactly, and that obviously is as much our error as it was his, and it's an error of. It's a naive approach to doing things, and it's weird now that I think of it that we would have been okay with our record being represented visually by something that we had no control over and no creative input into. Like, if I'm making a record now, I want like every aspect of it to make sense and be coherent. But at that time, it wasn't important to me. In any case, I don't think I had any contact with anybody about the artwork. I just remember it sort of appearing. Oh, Aaron Turner's doing the artwork. Oh, cool. And then I remember it appearing and going, okay, it looks kind of like a smushy, muddy mess with a triangle on it. Okay, that's what we're having then.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Okay. It's Aaron Turner. What can you say?
Well, there you go.
There you go. So So, like you said, you were saying that like at this point in the band's career, like it's very busy. Like you're saying, you're getting a lot of like attention at the time. As far as like the UK bands that you guys are playing with that are kind of on your level, what was the scene looking like at this point? Like, what kind of bands were you playing a lot with, as far as like just like the UK kind of scene?
UK wise, definitely a band that we always liked playing with would be Derail. Mm-hmm. How am I going to go about answering this? We were out and about playing more or less anything that we were getting offered, and that would mean playing UK gigs. And there were a bunch of bands around at the time that were also getting kind of traction. We've already mentioned Eden Main. There's a band from Brighton called Johnny Truant.
Well, the only reason why I asked is like, did you feel like you guys specifically had like a specific scene that you felt comfortable and fit in with? Obviously, you mentioned Derail, who were from your area. Like, as far as like a wider scene, were there any like bands specifically that you felt quite sort of close to and like playing shows with, anything like that?
No, okay. Unfortunately, no, and that is a shame. Because I think that's like a real force in alternative underground music when there's unity and there's a scene that comes together and bands are supporting each other and people from bands are doing stuff to help other people from other bands, and that's how it works. Because we don't have in independent underground music we don't have all of that sort of infrastructure that comes with the modern mainstream, and especially at that time there was no it's not like now where people have got Instagram accounts and TikTok accounts and I don't even know what, I sound like an old fella now, but we didn't have any of that. So and it's a shame that we didn't feel like there was anywhere we really fitted in. To be honest, we didn't really like any of the other bands that were around doing stuff at that time, particularly. It's not that I disliked any of them, and it's not that I disliked anyone on a sort of human level, but musically speaking, there was not really anything that spoke to me, and I could certainly say that the other guys in the band didn't really sort of feel any kind of musical kinship to many other bands that were around and about at that time, and that made it difficult because a lot of the bands that we sort of felt more maybe akin to weren't from the UK.
Right, understand.
And so that did make it a bit trickier. And it also created this sort of atmosphere of, like, a kind of rivalry, There was this sort of weird kind of rivalry between different bands from different parts of the country. And that's not the way it should be, of course, because, like, music isn't about competition or rivalry. Music's about, like, creating art and trying to speak to people and trying to make something that people can relate to. It's the opposite of rivalry. So that's probably a bit of a regret, I would think, from my point of view. At the same time, we were getting traction and getting good tour supports, and people were listening to our music and buying our records, and so it's a bit of a kind of a weird juxtaposition because we definitely felt like we didn't belong in a particular scene, but it was also kind of working for us at the same time. So it's a bit of a strange one, And there were other big bands, like bands that were getting bigger around. Bands like Funeral for a Friend and Hondo McLean. Bands like that. I mean, we didn't feel any kind of association to at all. And again, they had sort of a more mainstream sound. So it's logical that they were getting more mainstream attention because they were more accessible bands, simply put, with a wider kind of possible audience. I think when you listen back,
going back to what we were saying, so I get the impression you guys were you were constantly writing. So how quickly was this Elegy written after Breaking the Fourth Wall?
So not quickly at all.
Okay.
Contrarily to the sort of the first chapter of the story, it was when Breaking the Fourth Wall had been released and we were on that touring cycle and we were getting offered a lot of good tours and a lot of good tour supports that Will decided that he couldn't carry on with the band because he decided he couldn't give the amount of time to it that was necessary. And there's the age-old adage that you're only as good as your drummer, and I think that is 100% true. I think if you don't have a solid rhythm section in a band, it's very difficult to...
especially in your band.
Especially in... Yeah, but I mean in any band, really, I think.
Yeah.
So important. And there's also really definitely a kind of almost magical dynamic between Dave, the bass player, and Will and Mark, the guitar player. It just they played together for so long, and they just knew how each other worked, and it was pretty exciting to see that from a sort of from a musical composition perspective. It was really eye-opening sort of procedure watching them, sort of bring stuff together. And so when he decided to quit, that it was a bit of a difficult time for us. And we had a load of tours lined up, and he was like, "Well, I'll keep playing with you until you can sort of train someone up to take over and play my parts." And so we tried out a bunch of people, and it was never really very good. And then we tried out a guy called Chris Hurst, who came in and played with us for don't know how long. I remember he played with us. His first shows were just before we went on tour with the Dillinger Escape Plan, so we had to get something in place for this tour with the Dillinger Escape Plan, because Will, as far as I remember, Will was not going to do the tour with the Dillinger Escape Plan.
Right.
And that was a big tour, that was quite a lot of dates. It started in Antwerp and then moved back into the UK, and it was the Dillinger Escape Plan with Cult of Luna as the main support and Beecher as the opening band.
How was that tour?
That was that was amazing. It was the Miss Machine tour, and
oh, wow.
I mean, that was an amazing opportunity for us, and we couldn't miss that. So we managed to sort of get Chris up to speed, and he was playing on that tour. But honestly, we never felt very good. That's not a slight on Chris and his ability. He wasn't a bad drummer, but it wasn't the same, and we never felt, we didn't have that confidence. When you go out on stage and well, I mean, I can do whatever I want. I can roll around on the floor and spit at people and climb up the rafters and roll around and scream and shout, because it doesn't matter, because these two and him are just going to be solid. And we lost that, and so that was difficult. We were carrying on. We were trying to tour because we were still pushing, breaking the fourth wall, and we were getting offered loads and loads of stuff. We went on that tour with Norma Jean, and we it just kept building and building and building, but we didn't really have time to. We were working so hard on trying to get the set reasonable enough to play these shows that we never really had time to write anything at all. And so there were some ideas coming out, but nothing really of note. And then we were offered a European tour opening for Anthrax, which was massive. Wow. It was massive. And Chris had an accident. Chris, the drummer, had an accident and had a punctured lung and couldn't play anymore. And so this was the time when we're like, well, we're going to have to try and figure something out and get a new drummer. We went back to Will and said, will you just come and stand in and do this Anthrax tour? And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. So wow. we didn't do the Anthrax tour. And that was sort of a big wake-up call for us. Okay, we need to figure this out. If we're going to carry on, we need to figure this out now. We need to get someone who's solid, who we can feel comfortable with, and who can help us write the next record, who can write the next album with us, if that's what we're going to do. And we met this young kid. He was really young at that time. I don't know. I'm not in touch with him anymore. His name's Danny Jones, and he's the guy who played on this Elegy as Autopsy. And he was, like I say, young, 18, 19 years old when he came in, and a really good young drummer, powerful, solid. Really, he could play. He had everything. The only thing he maybe didn't have was the sort of musical culture that we all shared. So his reference points were different, and his understanding of what we wanted to do and where we were coming from was maybe not quite in line with how how it could have been. And I think if Will had stayed in the band, that would have been a totally different record.
Okay.
But as it was, I think we made a pretty good job of it, considering the circumstances.
So as far as so obviously the writing situations become incredibly different. As far as the as far as the writing, and obviously now you're going to be releasing the record through Earache. Does the signing that happen before the album has come out, or have they?
Oh, that happened before, and we had two offers. We had an offer from Century Media and an offer from Earache, and we took the Earache offer.
Okay. Any reason for that specifically, or
just the back catalogue and the love for the back catalogue that we all had, but especially Dave and Mark, who were like still are crazy fans of, like, 90s death metal, Carcass, Napalm Death, bands like Sleep. It sounds silly, but bands like Lawnmower Death, I know Mark was like a big fan. The Earache back catalogue was what really swayed it for us. And again, in hindsight, that was probably not the best decision we ever made. We probably should have gone with Century Media, but you do what you do, and and so that was all done well in advance. That was all that all happened during the Breaking the Fourth Wall touring cycle.
Right. Because do they re-release Breaking the Fourth Wall as well?
Yeah, that was part of the deal. So we signed a 5-album deal, and one of those was Breaking the Fourth Wall, then this Elegy, which wasn't made yet, and there was options on 3 more.
Right.
Obviously the 3 more never really nothing ever really materialized, but yeah, I think, as far as I remember it, that was the situation.
As far as the writing, as far as vocally, lyrically, was this Elegy, was that more like, how did you approach the writing of that record as a vocalist? That is definitely
so it was all very spontaneous, and like I said at the start, Resention, maybe even improvised to some extent, and then Breaking the Fourth Wall, less so, more composed and more thought through. And then when we got to the stage of Elegy, then I really wanted to sort of put a lot more thought into it, and so that's what it's a concept record, really.
Yeah.
So it's a story from start to finish. And I remember when I was writing it, and I would like send bits of it over to like the rest of the band. I remember saying to Mark, "What do you think?" He was like, "I don't know. I've never seen anything like it before." I was like, "Okay, fine." Yeah. Well, but
that's why I think that's my favourite of your records. Is like, I'm a huge fan of like a big concept piece, like, a story from start to finish, and it really seeps through. Just like even on the first listen, it's like, okay, I'm in a story at this point, and you've just got to follow it through.
That's great. I'm really pleased about that, because that was the intention from a lyrical point of view anyway. And I think that sort of lyrical intention probably had some influence on how the music came through, and certainly on the sequencing of the album. That maybe not on like the composition of the riffs themselves or the different passages, musically speaking, but definitely like the way the album was sequenced, the ordering of the songs, the segues that take you from one song to another. All of that probably sort of came from the lyrical concept, I suppose, or at least didn't maybe come entirely from the lyrical concept, but definitely had some influence.
Could you kind of summarize the concept of the album for people that haven't heard the record in full?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds funny talking about it now, doesn't it? Because it's a long time in the future, and it's a story about, I suppose it's a story about hope, I would say, and about optimism and positivity, and how important those things are on, not just on creativity, but on having an enjoyable life in general. And so it's from the perspective of somebody that has none of those things, a character, a fictional character, but then this fictional character also took influence from lots of different people that were around me and around us in that time. So I would take like elements of like chance meetings or recurring sort of relationship issues between. I don't mean like necessarily like like not like love relationships, but like any kind of relationship that I would have with different people, and the way that we it's difficult to explain. Struggling a bit. Just like interactions that I would have with different people, and I would kind of think about those things and take note on those things, and then try and work that into this character, so that he or she. It is a he. It could be a she, but it's a he, and he was taking kind of influence from lots of different places. So and there's a story arc from start to finish that I would suggest people go and listen to and read the lyrics and figure it out.
And does he? I'm assuming the artwork again. Does that fit into the concept as well?
Yeah. So it was a lot more. That's a much more sort of successful story, I think, than the Breaking the Fourth Wall artwork.
Yeah.
Chris Norris, who did that artwork, goes under the moniker Stake Mountain. He was in a band called Combat Wounded Veteran.
Yes, incredible band.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole interaction with him was really, really great from the start to finish. Like, he asked us how he wanted it to be. He asked for the lyrics. He had the record well in advance. He talked to us about kind of what we wanted to put across. You should have seen the faces of Digby Pearson and everybody else at Earache when we uncovered the front cover. They were absolutely mortified. Like hypercolor kind of rainbow thing with like the 3D. Oh my god, it was fantastic. It was a great moment seeing them sort of squirm when they saw what we were proposing as the artwork. Yeah, it's fabulous. Exactly what we were looking for. Earlier I said that Breaking the Fourth Wall is probably better. I mean, it's because it's kind of the general belief. I think just the energy, like the moment captured on record. I think the second one was so much more considered and so much more thought about, and every element of it, every aspect of it was so considered and worked, and every note was thought about, and every line of lyrics was written and changed and modified, and even down to the mix. When we mixed that, it was mixed by Kurt and also a guy called Matthew Ellard, and that's the team that mixed Jane Doe, in fact. So wow. Matthew Ellard came in and mixed Jane Doe with Kurt, and we did the same. Not because we were wanting to recreate Jane Doe, it sounds nothing like Jane Doe, but we wanted to have like a third party come in to kind of create something fresh in the mix. And there's so much going on in the mix. It's over mixed, if anything. It's like it pans from left to right in a way that makes it sometimes difficult to listen to, I think. But that can also be a reason to like it, as well as being a reason to not like it. But I think there's definitely an argument for there being more kind of spontaneous and natural energy in the first one than in the second one. And I say the first and second because I should say the second one and the third one, really. But
yeah, no, I understand. So you go back to Boston, you record with Kurt again. How is this, apart from obviously the duration, how different is this from your first time working with him to this time? How different are those two?
Yeah, different, really different. The first thing being the fact that Danny was there playing drums and not Will. And I definitely feel like in the dynamic of the band, I'd taken on a role with more control by that point. When we were there for the first one, it was really Will, Mark and Dave who were dealing with the music, and the whole time the music was being recorded, I could go for walks and send text messages on my archaic telephone and whatever else I was doing at that time. And then by the time we got around to doing Elegy, I think I had a much more sort of hands-on approach with Mark and Dave on how we all three of us wanted the record to come out. And all three of us were kind of coaching Danny as well. Like, we were really sort of behind Danny, trying to get him to do the best he could and to play it how we wanted it to be played, really. So I think there was definitely more of that. And we were there for longer, and that wasn't always easy being there for a month. It's good to have the time to do stuff properly. It's good to have the budget and the time, and that's a luxury. But at the same time, as well as it being positive, it can also be negative, because again, it's the same thing. It's overthinking everything and overanalyzing everything.
Yeah. You mentioned budget as well, because I guess now you're with I'd guess in the metal world, like quite a major. You have a budget for the distribution. You do a music video as well for one of the songs as well. Well, my first question, I guess it's two questions. So my first question was going to be about the record itself, because you do a standard CD, but you also do limited edition vinyl, which is like, it was like a 7-inch, like in a 5-pack. Or can you explain to me what you guys had decided to do?
We decided nothing at all.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
We made no decisions whatsoever. We were adamant we wanted a vinyl version of the record to come out. We wanted a double gatefold vinyl, simple, straightforward. And Earache wanted to do something a bit fancy and wacky, and so they made this 5x7-inch, like in a sort of pizza box thing, which is a really great object. It's a really fun object. It's good to get in your hands and to open and look at, but it's unlistenable. Yeah. Especially when you take into account the way the record is sequenced, and there's almost no silence on the record at all. So you're kind of just getting these like segues that are being cut off rudely. A moment which isn't really appropriate. In fact, it had to, it was impossible to sequence it in a way that made it listenable on that vinyl format. So, not from a listening point of view, definitely not great. From a collector's point of view, I mean, I know it did well. That sold out fast. So that was a thing as well from Earache's point of view. Okay, we'll do a vinyl version, but it has to be super collectible and small quantities, and that way we know that we'll sell it out fast. And to be fair to them, from that perspective, they made a good decision. Because if we'd just done a regular gatefold double LP, people, and then we might have been left with a lot of extra copies. But as it was, that thing sold.
I mean, I've been looking for it for years.
I tell you what, I would send you one if I had more than one, but I have one.
No, I completely understand.
If I had more than one, I would send it to you in a heartbeat. No,
it's fine. Like I alluded to as well, like you do a music video as well for Function. What was that like, recording a music video?
Awful.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Awful.
I mean, it's just not what we're about at all. It's just not. It's so far away from the reason why you start making music and being in a band.
Yeah.
And I understand why, and now even more so. I mean, you're best off having like a series of 30-second clips that people can put on Instagram Reels now, rather than actually having any kind of properly developed music, which to me is just unbelievable. Because what you just said earlier about being a fan of like a piece of work, a concept, a start and a finish. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm a fan of concept albums specifically, but I'm definitely a fan of albums. I'm definitely a fan of like being able to like immerse myself in the universe of a band or a musician or an artist for enough time to understand the complexities of that universe, and not just have 30 seconds like pumped into my eyes and then I'm on to the next thing. I hate that kind of disposable culture that we find ourselves in now. And I think music videos serve a purpose and have a place, and some music videos are really, really, really great, but that music video is not really great, and it doesn't again, it doesn't serve any purpose at all. So it doesn't give anything to the song. There's no context there at all. And I remember that we made it. Live performance video, okay, fine, in this barn somewhere in the south, and we had this camera going around us on a rail, and visually at the time it was quite cool, but to me that's like it's a secondary thing. For it to be visually cool, it has to have some kind of meaning before that, I think. And I remember the director of the video, when he sent through the first edits, said, "Oh, I've taken a quote from American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, and I've put it at the start, like on the screen, like subtitled on the screen." I can't remember what the quote was. A great book, by the way, fantastic piece of work, but absolutely nothing to do with me or us or anything that song stood for or stands for or anything. Just completely out of context. And I said, well, you can't do that. You can't just take a quote from someone else's work and stick it on there, and it doesn't make any sense. Take it off. And they're like, oh, all right then, okay, fine, we'll take it off. And so it's just sort of a standalone live performance video. It was painful to make, and it's painful to watch. And that's about it. I don't like music videos. We should have gone back to Chris Norris, and we should have got more artwork, and we should have made some sort of animation. That would have been better.
So okay, so the album's released. So as far as initial feedback, or just initial reception, how is that?
Underwhelming, I would say. Underwhelming. Unfortunately, I felt like there was a lot more. Again, I might be misremembering this because it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm only speaking from my point of view as well, because the others might say something different. But I feel like there was a lot more energy around breaking the fourth wall. I feel like when this Elegy came out, it all felt a bit flat, really. And we did like a release party at Mean Fiddler, so the LA2.
Yeah.
It was all right. It was fine. There were people there. It was cool, but it wasn't great. It doesn't go down. It doesn't stand out in my memory as being one of the great live moments that we were lucky enough to experience. It was just okay. Yeah. The reviews were fine. The reviews came in and they were fine. They were 8 out of 10s. Good reviews.
Yeah.
But it's just a question of feeling, like I didn't feel the same energy, the same sort of tense energy that I could feel around the band and around the communication between the band and the people watching the band that there was for the previous time. That's that energy that you can't describe, and you can't bottle it up, and you can't. It's just there or it's not there. And I felt like it was less present than it was when we'd made Breaking the Fourth Wall. And then we were desperately trying to get onto more tour supports to try and push the album more. But you'd already done some really great tour supports with some really great bands for the first cycle. I mean, where do you go from that? What are we hoping to get? We're hoping to get on bigger metal tours, play to more people, play in stadiums. I mean, to some extent, we did manage to get some gigs with bigger metal bands. I remember we played at the Astoria with Strapping Young Lad after this Elegy had come out. And you spoke earlier about not really feeling like you fit in. I mean, playing the Astoria before Strapping Young Lad is that really is the epitome of not fitting in. It was just horrific,
Yeah, that's a hard slot for anyone, I think. Yeah. So you guys, you do a tour though to promote the album, and you have Architects as your support. How did that come about? As far as like, did you already have a prior relationship to them? Had you played with them before? How did that work?
No, they just released a demo. and we got hold of it somehow for some reason. Can't remember why. And we'd get given a lot of demos at that stage, sort of CDR demos or whatever. And there was never anything that was particularly good, obviously. And then we got this demo from this band Architects, and we're like, oh my God, this is like really good. So when we booked that December tour, which actually ended up being our last ever tour, we were looking at tour support, and I was the one that said, oh, we should get this band Architects to play. They're on it at the deep end. They're going to release a record in it at the deep end. So we got, it can be easy to get in contact with them. We can, Mark Swinny will be pleased if we take one of his bands out with us. It might be nice. Yeah, okay, all right, fine. And then I remember Mark saying, yeah, but don't you think we should like take out like a band that we're friends with? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we've done that. We always did that. So why don't we just see? I mean, they might bring a younger crowd, like different people into our gigs. And I remember when I got in contact with Dan Searle saying, oh, would you be interested in opening for us on tour? I remember saying something like, yeah, in the end we don't have any like friends bands left that we want to go on tour with us, so would you be up for it? And I remember him coming back to me saying, oh great, you're offering us a tour spot just because you don't have any friends. Like I remember that. It wasn't exactly like that, but I remember this conversation happening, and obviously still in touch with Dan today. So sometimes I still think back to that conversation when I told him that we wanted Architects to go on tour because we didn't have any friends left. Quite an amusing anecdote, but that actually was a really, really good decision because they were really young and they definitely had this magical energy around them, which I've been talking about previously. They definitely had that, and they blew us away every day. And they've gone on to be what they are, which is just unbelievable. Absolutely no compromise.
Yeah. Always
evolving themselves musically, aesthetically, commercially. Business acumen. Musicality, image. I mean, it's unbelievable what they've managed to achieve. So yeah. And definitely very respectable, but it was definitely a good decision to have them on that tour. It was cool. It was eye-opening for us to see, because they were really, I suppose, when was that? 2005. So I was like 22 or something, and I think Dan and Tom then, I think they must have been 18 or 19 or something. So yeah, it was a real eye-opener to see these young kids that just had it. They were great. We did that tour, and then that was in December, I think, of 2005. And then in mid-January of 2006, we were supposed to go on a month-long European tour with Municipal Waste, which would have been a cool bill, would have been a weird bill because pretty different. But we were label mates, and that's definitely a band that was doing really great stuff. Definitely a cool band, and. Just after Christmas, New Year, in the lead up to that, it all sort of came to head that we weren't going to be able to do it. The band was just so unstable at that time with the changing of personnel and people wanting different things and people needing to focus on different stuff in their lives in the end. It gets to a point where it's just impossible, and unless for some reason you've managed to get yourself into a situation where you're in a band that is completely economically viable and everybody's making enough money to live comfortably, and it's an age-old story again, but it gets to the point where someone's just going to crack at some point because it's just unsustainable. And that was the situation we found ourselves in. We'd done the summer tour with Darkest Hour and Reflux, which was a month-long European tour. You're coming back from tours with like £100 in your pocket or something. Yeah. Just impossible. And then we did the winter tour with Architects as the main support. And like I said, they did a great job. They left a hole in the stage for us to play on every day. But that tour didn't really go particularly well. You released your second full-length album, and you're thinking, okay, let's hope that this is and some of the turnouts were awful for those shows. So it's difficult to sort of feel any kind of enthusiasm when it's a bit depressing to talk about that, because I mean I do have a lot of great memories of the band. I mean that's the truth of the matter. It really sort of kind of petered out a bit in terms of the interest that was in front of us.
Yeah, and sometimes you can't control that. Things just happen that way.
Yeah, sure.
As far as the breakup, as far as just from your perspective, were you in the mindset that you wanted to like carry things forward and like push this as far as possible? And if that's the case, was there an element of frustration involved that like maybe not everyone was on the same level?
No, not really. I think again, speaking from my point of view, I think I was just really sad. Didn't really know what to do myself because there'd been so much focus on that for a number of years, and it was my main sort of it was my main activity, if you like. It was what I was putting all my focus on, but then also some element of relief, because and there was never any sort of pushback from my point of view. It was actually Mark that said, okay, look, stop, we can't, this is unsustainable, we can't go on with this, right, in this way in any case, so I'm out. And when Mark said that, none of us tried to push back against that, because he would have been completely irreplaceable. He was, like I said earlier, the main contributing songwriter and the main driving force behind all of the musical composition. So yeah, there was absolutely no question that if he wasn't there, then none of us were going to be there. So okay. So yeah, I think I was just sad about it, and then kind of quickly was like, okay, well, maybe start thinking about doing something else and focusing on other stuff, and that sort of sadness quickly went away, and like I say, maybe felt kind of relieved.
So you do a final show at the Star and Garter.
That was it. That was the only one. We did one show. We just announced one final show, and I was reminded of this recently. I was like, yeah, we'll just do one show at the Star and Garter, and we'll just charge £2 on the door, no tickets.
Yeah.
This is in 2006. £2 on the door, no tickets.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
Genius, marketing genius. Well, you could think, well, we'll cash in. We'll do one last show and we'll really cash in. Oh no, we'll just do £2 on the door, no tickets.
Well, yeah, I think it says more about the fact that you were like, listen, it's the end of the band. We're not trying to cash in on it.
Exactly,
like, it's just
exactly.
It is what it is. If you want to come see it, then come see it. That's it.
But I mean, there was a downside to that people drove from every corner of the United Kingdom, and the first 200 people got let in, and then after that no one else got let in, and there were lots and lots of people that had driven a really long way that got turned away at the door. Wow. Yeah, so that, not a great, I mean, but again, kind of it's part of the legend, so yeah. And that's a great memory. That gig was a great memory.
I was going to say what your specific memories from that night were.
It's crazy, just that room being absolutely packed to the rafters, and again, just I keep going back to it, but this energy that is so important in this style of music. I mean, probably in all music, I would say, and I would go even further and say in all sort of art forms. It's very important to have this kind of shared energy, and when it's not there, it's really difficult to kind of pretend that it is. But when it is there, it's that's what it's about. It's magical, and that night there definitely was that shared energy between the crowd and between us, and so that's a great memory. And any gig, I think, that you play, or even that you go to, where you feel that is. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, because I was going to say as well, with it sounds like pretty much every member of Beecher went on to do at least another band after the fact. But yours project specifically, because of your prior relationship with Kurt, that kind of like followed through with everything else you did. My question was going to be about recording with Freezing Fog. Did you record more with Kurt with that as well?
Yeah, we did. We recorded the first Freezing Fog record in Boston. we went for 5 days, I think.
Yeah.
5 or 6 days. It was crazy. Yeah, that was a fun experience. And then the second Freezing Fog record, we recorded it in Wales, but Kurt mixed it.
Okay, cool.
So we sent it to him and he mixed it. Again, it's just because you're sort of trying to keep up these relationships, these links that you've created over time. Yeah. And I would be delighted to go and record music with Kurt again if the opportunity presented itself, because it's always a great time, and he's really good at what he does. So yeah.
So as far as your journey specifically is concerned, you eventually leave the UK and move to Belgium. Did that happen much further along after the breakup, or was it like quite quickly?
I moved here in 2009, so 3 years. The whole Freezing Fog period took place from early 2006 to the end of 2009. In that time we did 3 records, and it was a time when I was living in Manchester city centre.
Okay.
With my girlfriend, who is now my wife, who is Belgian, and that's why I live in Belgium.
Right, makes sense.
And she was living in England at that time. She was living in Manchester with me, and that's when we did that band. And then when she decided that we'd be moving to Belgium, and I went along with it. She didn't hold a gun to my head. I was. Totally,
it's not the worst place to live, honestly.
No, it's very nice. I like living here a lot, but I've lived here for 17 years now, so it's quite a long time. So it was in 2009 that we decided to move here, and that's when I also said, well, listen, the Freezing Fog, that ended because I left. I think for a short time, Mark, who was the guitar player in Beecher, was going to replace me in the Freezing Fog, actually.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think it ever happened. I think I remember like going to his house with my guitar and teaching him some of the riffs, trying to get him up to speed. I have a distinct memory of doing that. I'm sure that happened, unless I dreamt it, but I'm pretty sure it happened. Yeah. But I don't think they ever. I don't think they ever actually did anything. I don't think he ever actually played a gig with them or anything like that. And we got back together and did 2 gigs when Dave got married. So Dave got married in, oh my God, I don't know, maybe 2012. Let's say 2012. And we did a couple of gigs then. We got back together. And there were the Beecher reunion gigs as well, which we didn't mention yet, of course.
Well, yeah, no, I was about to bring that up because obviously in 2011, you guys decide to do some reunion shows.
It's the 10-year anniversary of the band. So 2011 marked 10 years from when we got together. It just seemed like a nice idea. I don't know why... I don't really know if there was a specific reason other than that we decided to do it, but everybody was up for it, and it was fun, and the gigs were really good actually. We did 3. We did 1 in Manchester, which was really, really good, massive turnout, and then we did 1 in Leeds, which was a little bit less good. Again, why we did Manchester and Leeds, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, whatever. And then we did the 3rd one in London, which was really good. It was at the Borderline, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and it was sold out at the Borderline, so that was. I mean, it's a small venue, but for us to sell out a venue of any kind, we were like, okay, great, this is perfect. So it was again good memories. No pressure, like you said. Just felt really nice, felt really natural, and I remember a few people saying, "Oh, you've never sounded as good back in the day as you sounded at those 3 gigs." Yeah. So that was nice to hear. Why I'm not sure really, and I'm not really sure why we did it. Again, it wasn't like there was no like financial gain to be had. We just did it because it seemed like it would be a fun idea, and it was a really fun weekend. So it was good, and the chains were off. It was it was just it was good. It was good.
Good. So kind of to like wrap up everything as far as Beecher is concerned, like what as far as like kind of what we've talked about, just kind of the journey of the band itself, like what are things that you take away from it, and like how do you see that journey in retrospect as far as like Beecher and the band itself?
It's a funny one. It's a really important snapshot in my life. Absolutely. The opportunity that we had to be on a stage and to have an audience and to have the possibility to go and record records, especially at that time, to go and record records with somebody that we looked up to. Well, certainly I looked up to in Kurt, and be able to make the best records that we could, and have them released properly, and be covered by magazines, and all that stuff was really exciting and really enriching. And like I said before, it was like the main focus of my life during that period. That was my main. I was very one-sided. I didn't. I would quite happily drop everything else and put all of my put all of my effort into that. It was really the most important thing for that short period of time. And it was I met my wife on tour with Beecher. So sometimes I think about that. If I'd never gone and joined those guys in a barn in Urmston to see what it was like doing some vocals on their weird songs, then I would have never, a few years later, met the person that would become my wife, and now I wouldn't live in Belgium, and we have 2 kids, and they wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for Beecher. So sometimes I think about that. It's a wider perspective, a wider understanding of how important that period of time was, because it was what it was, but because of it, my life has taken a specific shape and form. So and it was a good experience musically speaking as well. So it made me want to carry on, and I learned a lot as well. I learned a lot, because I already played guitar before I started singing in Beecher, but not particularly well. And I really learned like how to play the guitar, watching Mark play the guitar, for example. Just watching him write music, and watching him play, and watching how he moved his hands on the instrument, really made a big difference to me in my approach of how to play the guitar. And I definitely think that's. I play guitar in bands now, and if I hadn't been in Beecher, then I wouldn't have had that sort of experience either. So I think it's definitely brought a huge number of things to my life. It's definitely shaped who I am as a person. So yeah, it's really, really important, and it's cool to think that yourself or a few other people might still listen to what we made 20 years ago and enjoy it and think that it's good and put some worth into it still today. Yeah, I think like you said earlier, a few hundred Spotify listeners. It's not very many, but it doesn't really matter, does it? If it can make a few hundred people happy, then that's great. So
yeah, I agree. I think so from my own perspective, I guess, is like, for myself, trying to find the music that I wanted to gravitate towards, and seeing your band specifically and many others within the UK, it kind of felt like that it was more of an achievable thing to see the kind of music you guys were making, and that you guys were doing tours and stuff like that, and you were just these guys from Manchester and surrounding areas. It really did make me think, wow, I mean, if they can do it, then like anyone can do it,
Of course, you can. Anyone can.
Yeah, and for me, like, it really did inspire me to join bands and write music and things like that. So obviously, it's a weird like relationship you have with your own art, and then how people perceive your own art. But it is something that we can all relate to, in the sense that we have these like relationships with like artists that we are fond of, and they inspire us, and then sometimes we don't necessarily know how much that ripple goes across everyone around us.
Exactly. And that's a great thing. If some of those decisions that we made in a rehearsal room 20 years ago led to that's cool, isn't it, with music, how it all comes from snapshots and moments, and it gets put together, and then once it's made and it's recorded and released, it's there forever. And I think if you know, I might hear a song that was made like 20-25 years ago by some like punk band or like, you know, noise rock band or whatever, and think, that's really cool, and doesn't have any really any relevance to a lot of people, or even to the people that made it all that time ago. You know, it's sort of like a distant memory, but the fact that it's there and it exists and it continues to exist, I think that's really cool. And the fact that the records that we made are there and they exist, and you know, people, even younger people, might, you know, kind of. That would be cool to me if like, you know, sort of 20-year-olds kind of felt like they wanted to, like, you know, investigate some old man music that maybe influenced some music that they like, you know, today. That would be great. I would hope that maybe that might happen. So and thank you very much for doing what you've done, and for choosing to do an archive episode on Beecher. It's really pleasing when somebody you know, gives a little bit of credit to something that was really important to all of us. So it's really nice.
I really appreciate that. My favourite thing when I ever do those videos is a kid from another part of the world goes, "I've never heard of this band, then my new favourite band, thanks for sharing." That's always my favourite thing, because, you know, it's something that I'm passionate about, and if I can make someone else passionate about it as well, then for me that's a small victory. So
it's a big victory, I would say. It's great.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Good job. You're doing great work.
So yeah, listen, I just want to thank you for taking the time to have a chat to me, like
No problem.
giving more of a timeline for the band's, you know, story, and so just thank you.
Great. Well, no, thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure chatting to you about it all.
Thank you. I don't really know how to end these, so I think I'm just gonna end it, and I'm gonna press stop recording now.